And send. And here we are, back once more for another session of Fabula Ultima. I am your host, Jake, BB, or whatever else you want to call me if you're over on the Discord. Or really anywhere else, I'm fine with it, I'm adaptable. And I'm joined, as I have been these last several times, with my players. We have been playing through Fabula Ultima, specifically the Press Start adventure. This is a little sort of just introductory adventure to get people into it, and we have, for the most part, completed it. In our last session, our heroes faced off against the villains of the campaign, Desdemona and her brother Tristan, the Percy siblings. Just to remind you all. While the party managed to fell Tristan, who they discovered was merely a animate suit of armor, Desdemona caught his soul in a compass that she had originally sought and escaped as the building they were fighting in began to collapse around them. The heroes grabbed up a fallen prince, Prince Rain Clarimond, and pulled him to safety. In the chaos, they have lost sight of Desdemona, and with there no more clear threats in the area, have retreated back to the airship. Awaiting them is Merchant Olivia, the young bear girl who waves happily to them at their approach, though notices possibly their more somber expression. They also find the captain of the ship there. You can see his crew still tinkering about, and he approaches the edge and sort of like puts his hand on the rail, leaning over to regard you. Leon does. And so, as you all draw near, you have some questions to answer. This doesn't have to be the end of your story, and for those that play the adventure, it certainly doesn't have to be the end of theirs. While for now, you may have lost sight of Desdemona, you have at least certainly slowed down her plans. And so, as they are working on the ship, as you rest and recuperate, and restore your fallen combat, Rain, who had collapsed during the fight after a vicious attack, you have to decide, what will you do now? Will you chase after Desdemona, or return to Denova? How have your recent experiences affected each player character? Will your identity, theme, and bonds change after today? And for one of you, they already have. Will the Empire use this
I feel
opportunity
seen.
to make a move against the kingdom? And what creatures still lurk in the crater? All these questions swirl in the head of the four characters played by Decaf, if you would like to introduce his character.
Yes, I suppose I shall. Felix Morrow, from the same origin place as Desdemona. Similarly trained in the spear by her, he likens himself to a dragoon with lots of acrobatic jumping and mobility options to strike down foes.
Indeed, so Felix hails from the Empire of Alonia. He was trained by Desdemona. She implored you to flee when you first encountered her to let her restore her brother in peace. But you fought against her. You fought against your mentor, your teacher. Where do you think you'll move to now? Do you think you will continue to seek her?
I think so. I think there's no question that he knows something is going on that is leading back to Alonia, and he might have to start digging into that more.
Yeah. Well, also affected by this encounter is Everdeen Artemis, played by our lovely Thread. the Red Everdeen saw her charge go down in this last fight.
She did.
Where's her head at? She's not somebody that has much patience for incompetency or failure.
Absolutely, she doesn't. However, Rain Claremont has a soft spot in her tsundere heart where even though she is worried that he fell, she knows he could get stronger, especially under her tutelage, but is maybe more concerned about the after effects of his experience of failure. And is it a failure? This was a pretty big encounter to come across as new to the game, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other piece Everdeen is thinking about is maybe in her earlier years when she was trying to become stronger and more powerful alongside Rain's father, King Claremont. Sometimes where she may have fallen short and felt danger, maybe even felt scared, and had to come up with ways not only to become stronger, but to trust herself more, even when things don't go exactly to plan. And I think in her mind, she'll include that as part of her tutelage to Rain if Rain will have her. I think there'll be some patience to give space for processing, but there'll also be like in the end she'll be like, "You gotta train. You got this. The only way to be powerful is you dig in and trust your friends and the power of friendship and other things too."
So the
So
consequences of Rain failing here, of Rain falling here, is a much stricter training regimen.
maybe not strict, but not yielding.
Okay.
Um, not yielding. Very like, I
Good luck,
saw the
Rain.
power in you. Yeah. Saw the power in you. I'm not giving up until you see the power in you kind of energy.
Oh man, I'm glad it's not me. Oh wait.
Well, speaking of which, a key player in that fight was none other than Claire Spitfire, who saw the fight battle to the end, blasting away at enemies, and had a fantastic opening there, shooting the item they had sought to claim from Desdemona's hand.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they still managed to lay claim to it. And Vorthis, how does Claire feel about all this?
Oh, she's angry. She's pissed off. They managed to escape, and she's not used to failing to deal with her query, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So she's almost certainly going to be chasing them down.
Okay, so yeah, she's ready to go back in there.
Yeah, possibly alongside Felix if he's going back in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the two marshals are sort of like cooking plans together. But that leaves the self-described, not so shy, and his character of the Prince of Denova, Rain Claremont. Now, Rain alone fell during this conflict. Well, maybe not alone. The Tristan, the suit of armor, was also destroyed beyond to the point where his soul had to flee it. Who do you think is helping carry him out of the like debris? Like who's helping him to his feet, dragging him out of this collapsing structure?
Oh. I mean, I almost would imagine that it'd be up to the other three considering, but I imagine in my head it'd be one of, if not Everdeen first just knowing, potentially from the bond that was initially forged at the ship, also Felix perhaps. Yeah. Just from what I am understanding there. But I could imagine one of the two. And not that Claire wouldn't, but the first to immediately, I would say.
I envisioned Claire as everything was collapsing. Claire was just trying to fire shots into Desdemona as she fled. But the just rubble and debris falling in the way
Yeah,
meant that she couldn't quite get them to land. So
yeah, that sounds about right.
even with them having to help you out, Claire might have still been the last person out of there.
Yeah.
What is, now that you've had a little time to rest and sort of recuperate, maybe somebody's used inventory points to generate a elixir to restore your health or something. Um, what is going through your mind? Where are you at with all this?
I think once Rain is like conscious again, there is he still has that want to ensure that everyone else is okay, even though he was obviously the one that was not. But he's a lot quieter about it. He's not there's what's the word for it? It's lots just kind of going through his head in general as of right now. And I think the main piece, like on the outward side, he's staying courteous and I guess protective, for lack of a better word.
Mhm.
But on the inside, he's not really focused on the outside. It's all just, I guess, a question of why to him. Why force the potential of, I guess, war, which would, put the lives of so many at risk and in pain and suffering for just one thing.
Yeah.
And I do believe it starts off with him just not understanding it. And as he tries to just think about what would cause it, and maybe he even starts to ask himself, like, what would cause me to do that? What would push me over such an edge? And I think his theme, switching over to doubt, is mostly just because now he's not sure.
Hmm.
And I think it's because it's a lack of understanding. He doesn't understand why, and he wants to know why.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was the one that sort of brought this group together for this, like, adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even, can't even really say that you guys were fully victorious. You certainly slowed down whatever happened, but Desdemona's still out there. She got what she was looking for here. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where does Rain want to go with all this? Where does he want to go next?
There. Ooh,
Everdeen seems to think that you need more training.
that's valid. Honestly, I do believe there's a part of him that does have this initial desire to just chase after, and he almost, maybe he even entertains the idea. But I don't imagine he does. I imagine he goes home, or at least goes to make his way home, to inform his father kind of what happened.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah.
Also, do
Yes.
not worry. Training would happen whether we went home or went abroad. The training will happen.
Excellent. It sounds like every character has ideas of where they want to go next. So, within the next few days, with help from Olivia and the crew, and maybe raiding a few pieces from the remains of the crater of Megiddo, the ship is soon once more in tip-top shape. It is ready to take off and return home. those who board it wish to, and may be saying their farewells to the members of the party that don't intend to return home just yet. And so this is a game where the GM has a little less control over everything, and you guys are fully encouraged to tell, like, make up story points, and even like describe like the world itself. And so, with that being the case, I want each of you to tell me what happens in your character's epilogue. And you can take this as far or as short as you want. Give you, once somebody is ready to go, let me know and we can sort of get into it.
I think I maybe kind of have a concept for what Rain does already. Just at least to start us off.
Yeah, kick us off, man. Lead the way.
So kind of piecing off of what I mentioned before, heading home, I would say that's exactly what happens. Whether or not anyone else goes, obviously Everdeen probably does as well, but I'll let them say their pieces. But Rain goes home and he informs, his father as was planned.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is the initial, I guess, scolding, you could say, from the king. But if anything, there was more worry, most initially especially. Perhaps more strict guidelines to watch the prince for guards around the castle, but it's almost unnecessary, at least at first. Maybe as time goes on, he begins to become almost more slightly less naive in his approach towards things. He's more questioning it in the sense of understanding sides. But it definitely starts off with him taking at least a good amount of time to himself and just trying to process everything, to understand different viewpoints. And he ends up in the library more often than maybe even he usually did before.
Mm-hmm.
Or doing things like that, just to study up on things along those lines. And then I think he, after a short while, goes from slowly, maybe almost seemingly not taking his training seriously, but it wasn't that. It was just he didn't have the mental energy to doubling down, tripling down to ensure that he becomes better. If he doesn't understand, then he needs to be better so that it doesn't matter if he doesn't understand. He can then make a decision. He can take guided information to himself and use it to apply. And a lot of this is so that he can become a better king. But there is definitely a lot of this now that is also being spurred specifically, I would say, by Desdemona.
Yeah. So it
Just
sounds
lingering.
like the identity of our free-spirited prince becomes a little less free-spirited.
Maybe.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have an idea of an epilogue for their character, for this adventure? This little scenario we ran.
I do, but I'm very curious about what Felix is going to do because it's going to tie into what I think I would say for my epilogue.
Decaf, do you have any ideas of Felix's epilogue?
I think I do.
Okay.
I think
Take it away.
the most foremost thought on Felix's mind is knowing that Desdemona is trying to, I guess, revive her brother in some way, shape, or form. She has a magic item that can do that, but he's not aware of what the requirements are in order to complete said ritual. So I think, well, he doesn't just dive into like the nearest library. He does start asking questions, right? He will probably find the local knowledge experts on the weird, the esoteric, the occult, see what maybe they know. And then he's going to start hunting down Desdemona.
So, just so I'm clear, so at least initially, he does return to Denova.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he returns on the airship with Rain, if nobody else.
For sure.
Okay. Then, once suitably armed with knowledge, he begins hunting down his former mentor. Anything you want to add to that, or you think that's about the gist of how far you want to carve out with it?
Yeah, I think I'm happy ending on a cliffhanger, as he probably has to set off onto the horizon to find his former mentor.
Excellent. Love it.
Yes, I love it too. Oh my gosh. Like
So,
any good anime made in 2016, we're leaving on some serious cliffhangers and saying you have to read the manga to like know what happens next.
Yeah, it was only
Oh,
a 12 episode anime. Like you gotta read the
12
rest.
You have to read the rest. There's no season 2.
Dude,
Sucks to be you
every time,
every time.
without fail.
Without fail.
I will take your words for it. Well, Thread, it sounds like you have an idea of where Everdeen is going then.
Yes, and it helped to know where Felix was because, first of all, Everdeen, of course, is going with Rain, especially as part of the talk with Rain and his father. Because my hope was if his father got too mad, I could step in as like not as the protector or his employee, but like as the king's friend to be like, hey, lay off a little bit and we'll work through this. Like always, we come up with a solution. That kind of energy of where I may be a hard ass, but I'm also a protector at the same time.
Yeah.
So with Rain, as he is now like recovering from that encounter with Desdemona, not only will there be training, but there will also be like those really incredible anime heart to hearts that happens with a mentor and then the main shonen protagonist, a la Full Metal Alchemist and the lady that raised them or like trained them when they decided to become alchemists. Um, and it very like, yeah, life is tough, but the way you become tougher is yes, you hold space for your beliefs and you hold space for your power, as well as you when you decide, then you move. But once you can't be like half and half about your decisions. If you're gonna decide, you do it, you go and you charge. And then when you learn new information, you take that in and then you decide a different decision. So, that kind of mentorship. I would also encourage Rain when he felt more solid again to go with Felix as part of the mission to find Desdemona because I think it's bigger than just bringing her brother back. I think it's going to be like a Philosopher's Stone-esque thing where you find out it takes like 10,000 souls to make the stone. And so to prevent like Desdemona from wiping out an entire city worth of people or something, to like, bring her brother back, we're probably gonna have to do some intervention measures. And I'm happy to like encourage Rain in his growth and quest for more power to be a protector himself. And I'm very excited for this story.
Excellent. Well, to see if Rain goes on that adventure, you will have to check out Season 2. But in the interlude before
Only in
then,
written format.
Yep. In the interlude before then, Vorthis, do you have any idea for Claire's epilogue?
Yeah, she So she's not going to go back with the others. She's actually going to go back into the ruins and hunt down Desdemona herself.
Mhm.
Like, she doesn't really care that much about the compass, but she does care that, like, someone that she was hunting got away. She wants to make sure that she can finish the job. So she's almost certainly going to be like the one who's going to see off the, Rain, Everdeen, and Felix.
Mhm.
But she's going to stay here, go back into the ruins, just start hunting her down to see, okay, where, is she going to go back to the Empire, or is she just going to be hanging out here in the ruin, trying to, you know, hide from everybody? That's what she's going to do. Really, kind of simple, but again,
Yeah. I mean,
the bloodhound.
do you think they clash again? Do you think she does like catch up with her? And if
I would think so, but each time they would just just barely make it out, which is why maybe when Felix, Rain, and Everdeen come back, they'll probably end up seeing like signs of battle all
Mhm.
over the ruin.
Yeah. So Claire's just sort of doggedly chasing down Desdemona, but is never quite able to finish off her quarry. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I think that leaves us with a good possibility. While we are ending this session and this game for now, for here, maybe someday we will return and we will see how a season 2, so to speak, would play out for our heroes. But for now, that covers Fabula Ultima. Now, this is by no means going to be a long episode, but it is far too early to cut it off now. And what I actually wanted to do is talk a little bit about the game itself. Give a little bit of review, an after action report, as we used to call them. And so we're going to discuss a little bit of the mechanics here. And my players, I want you guys to chip in, share your own thoughts about what you all think. And so why don't we just start with basic impressions after playing? Just how do you
Okay.
like the system? Yeah, just give me your general thoughts on that. And whoever wants to take it off, in fact, you know what? Why don't I kick it off? I think it's a neat system. Um, it's got a decent amount of crunch to go along with the there's a lot of like sort of narrative stuff and aspects like that you can get into, and it's a good mix. It's a healthy mix that I like. I do tend to like my systems a little bit crunchier. I like I like when tactics are a little bit more prevalent, stuff like positioning and things like that. Um, and I think I call me spoiled by the Pathfinder 2 action system. The limitation of a single action per turn is rough on me. That being said, I do think this is a game I could see myself being roped into in the future. The idea of the character customization, just being able to like choose different levels and stuff like that, is very appealing to me, and I think there's a lot of fun combos that we got to see even here at first level with the characters. Or, well, technically fifth level, but that's a starting level for all characters, so it feels like first level. So overall, if I were to attach a numerical value to it, which I don't want to do, but I will, I'd say 3.5. It's not maybe, yeah, maybe 3.5. I don't think it's entirely my cup of tea, but I think it's well built and it was fun. I had fun playing it. Anybody else want to follow that up?
I think I might.
Go for it.
Cause I definitely I'm basically with you on basically everything you said there. I'm one who really prefers more crunch in his games, especially when it comes to character customization. Which, by the way, I think Fabula Ultima really nailed. Like I was under the impression when I saw how relatively few options each class had compared to say Pathfinder.
Yes, yeah, I noticed that at first too.
But the fact that you can start with either 2 or 3 classes, and as you're leveling up, and you're basically pick and choosing different aspects of each of those classes to build your character. I feel like there's more to it than what, say, something like Pathfinder does. Because, Pathfinder, you have archetypes, sure, but you don't really have that much in the way of multi-classing as a first-class citizen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly not at first level for Pathfinder.
Yeah, definitely not. So, it's definitely something that I would love to take the system and, like, inject some more Pathfinder into it, or inject Fabula Ultima into Pathfinder. There are ideas that I love in the system, like the clock system, which I know we didn't really use, but I did read about it. That is
Yep.
such a nice system to use. I
Well,
like the fact that elemental damage is kind of a big thing. Like, you have earth damage. Thank you. Not none of this bludgeoning nonsense. Give me earth damage. Give me proper element damage.
yeah. Now I will say the clock point isn't too different from the clock system isn't too different from victory points in Pathfinder. But yeah, clock system. I've
Yeah.
seen a couple RPGs, a couple systems use that. It's an interesting way to go about things. It was talked about in the press start booklet. It wasn't super relevant to anything we were doing, and they were just like, "You should discuss this with them." But I was like, "Let's get to the boss fight."
hmm Yeah. So I think overall, if I'm rating on a 5-point scale, I'd probably be about the same, 3.5 out of 5 sort of deal. And like you said, I would certainly be up for continuing to play this system, because especially where you can feel like you can level up, gain more options, and see what happens. Um, Overall, it definitely I felt emulated the classic JRPG. It really did, like how combat worked, where you all basically line up, enemies on one side, allies on the other, and you're basically taking turns back and forth. So,
Wailing
di-
on each other.
yeah. Now, did I miss some element of tactical movement? Yeah, but at the same time, I understand why they didn't include that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an example of, I think, simplification that I'm kind of okay with. Just because they're really trying to mimic what a JRPG is like. So at
Yeah.
least so that's really from the crunchy mechanic standpoint. I'm a little leery on the narrative side of it. I think being a bit looser with the narrative stuff, as opposed to having mechanic to help the narrative stuff, I'm a little leery of that. But again, I'm someone who likes to have a lot of mechanic behind like everything I do. So
Yeah, there's a lot of encouragement of like having the player characters be big on like what is this world like and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I have mixed feelings on that. I like the idea in theory, but in concept, I feel like it might go a little too far at times. Like I would prefer to have something a little bit more.
Concrete.
I don't want to say yeah, concrete. I was going to say grounded, and I'm like, no, I don't want grounded, but something more concrete to like grasp at and work with, as opposed to let's just make this up as we go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think like playing this game proper, one of the things is that you do like you are supposed to sit down like during your session 0 and plan out the world that you're playing in. We were using the press start adventure, like the world it came with, which was a little bit lighter on details than maybe it should have been. But anybody else have thoughts they want to share on this?
I do.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Yeah, Thread, bring it in. You are our newest RPG player, and I say
Yeah.
that with no insult or ill intent. But you have
Yes.
fresher eyes compared to the rest of us.
Yes.
What's your impression?
All right. So, for some background, yes, I've had the glorious opportunity to play D&D 5e, as well as Pathfinder 2e. But you're right. There's definitely veterans in here that have played much deeper in both of those properties. Um, for this property, I really, first of all, I had a good time.
That is
I don't
always the
know
goal.
if
That is the goal of
that
any
is the goal.
RPG ever played.
I had yes, I had a good time. First of all, because my little anime heart was moved.
Going
I
pitter
also
patter.
liked. Yeah, it was Doki Doki. Okay.
Okay, I'll
I
take your
also.
word for it. Whatever that means.
I also liked the elemental pieces because it never felt um like for example there wasn't a space where someone could completely like block elementally across all elements or completely attack across all the elements. I know we didn't get very far, but it just felt, I don't know. I really like the specific elemental approach in attacks and planning and part of the character design. I also like that you started at level 5, that you can multi-class, and that you have to start with a minimum 2 classes. But I also felt like the class design wasn't too overwhelming, as some of the experience I had like coming into 5e for the first time. I was immediately overwhelmed, and I actually had to have a couple people like give me support before I actually tried 5e. I actually almost walked away. So this was a lot easier to like manage the character planning and talk through. I also felt like it was easier to hold space of like, I'm okay with being a slightly different class if it supports the group story, or like having this component once while our session 0 people were unfolding their characters. I was able to be like, well, then I'm comfortable going with this direction to like round out the group and what have you.
Mhm.
And the part I had the hardest time with was, it felt like to do a thing, like to do an action, was pretty expensive. In
Yeah,
other
that
words, whether it was damage, yeah,
that one
like
action per
damage,
turn it's rough.
yeah,
After because
it's
the
rough.
last RPG you played, right, was Pathfinder Second Edition,
Yes,
where you
and we
had
had 3
three
actions.
actions.
Yes, yes, and it didn't cost me like half of my resources to do one thing, right?
Mm.
Like to do my one action as like, let's say an elementalist, it took like a fourth of my mind points to
Or
like
even
do
you as
anything.
an arcanist. That was like 40 mind
Yeah,
points or something. That was so
that
expensive.
was my whole budget. Like it's like rent in the DC area. It's just taking my whole bank account. Anyways, so that was the part I had a harder time with, was that it was expensive to do things. Also, I appreciated that one could rejuvenate their like hit points with the
Inventory
using
points.
the inventory points.
Mhm.
But then I could see how a battle could get really long, because if I re-up and then the boss re-ups and then I re-up and then the boss re-ups, we're gonna at least be going many, many rounds until we're all empty out of everything,
Yeah,
and
and
then who could land the final blow.
I'll jump
Yeah.
in here on that real quick because like that was
Yeah.
something I noticed. Like the bosses could get so much like restored from spending one of their Ultima points.
Yeah.
Like
And they had how many?
so we'll just real quick. During a conflict scene, a villain may spend an action and one Ultima point to instantly recover from all status effects and regain 50 mind points.
Yo. That's amazing. That
Um,
cost me 3 inventory points to do that.
yeah, and these are
Yeah.
minor villains, which means they only got 5 Ultima points each.
Yeah. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Imagine if they're the big baddies. We'll be here all day.
they just had
So,
a lot of restorative capabilities.
yes.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
of course, I like as a player to be overpowered, but it was mind blowing to be like, oh, we're nowhere going to be near as powered as like the villains will be, and that's I think the point. But ooh, one dies fast in this game.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was the T. But
I definitely noticed
overall,
that as well.
yes. So overall, I give it a 4.5 because of how I felt like I was able to seamlessly play. I had fun. I like the storytelling elements, as you can tell. Like I got to have my acting moment a little bit. Like that was fun. But yeah, I really do like this game structure. But yeah, there's definitely room. There's still room for growth.
Mhm.
So thank you for your time.
All right.
Also,
Well,
I
that.
do have one more thing
Yeah, sure.
that I like about the system, and this is more just becoming from more D&D Pathfinder. I like that it uses mind points for magic instead of spell slots. Spell points are better every way. I will not budge on this. This is the hill I will die on. Spell points are better.
All right. Well, you're welcome to die on that hill because I definitely prefer spell slots. Anyway, Decaf or Shy, do either of you want to weigh in on this?
I mean, you play a barbarian or a gunslinger, you can sit on the sidelines with your spell slots versus magic points argument.
But
Dang.
you two, I think, you guys were the ones that recommended this. I think Decaf, you specifically did, if I recall correctly.
This is true.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not sure if you've played this on your own otherwise, or if this is like your first real like digging into it. What do you think?
So yeah, I picked it up the moment it was available. I'm kind of in a middle ground here. I think there is a lot of the previous game experience influences a lot of the opinions on this. I actually really enjoyed the character creation aspect of it all. I think there is a weird flexibility that I actually really enjoy. It's very crunchy to almost complicated with how simple it is because you can combine all these classes. I mean, there's like 15 of them in total.
Right, and that's just in the core book.
And that's just in the core book. And as somebody who thoroughly also plays Pathfinder 2nd edition, that is a lot of information that can end up being overwhelming. Like I can say, while we were doing character creation, I actually took one of the recommended builds from the core book and just put my own spin on it. If you just search Valkyrie, it's in there and it gives you the 5 classes that you're putting together and what you're taking. And I'm going, yeah, I'm just doing that. I'm not
Fair enough.
There's a lot going on here for as straightforward as it is. I think it's really good though, and I think it has a lot of potential. On the reverse side, I also am in agreement with Pathfinder has spoiled me with 3-action economy. There's a weird juxtaposition here of you're playing a game that is oriented for multiple players, but in an actual JRPG, these are offline single player games where one person
would
control a party of 4
multiple
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't feel the same way. It doesn't feel right almost. Like the idea of hitting one major action and it feels like you're doing so much because of your ability to role play and interact with one another, but you're doing so little at the same time.
And I think an interesting point about that is while Pathfinder has that 3 actions, you still have to do stuff like move and position in Pathfinder, which isn't something you have to do here.
Correct.
Yet, even without having to do that, I still felt a little constrained with like my action usage and stuff.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. I mean, it's the idea that like I was doing one main thing, which is I get to attack 2 enemies every turn. And I'm going, that's really cool. If I didn't lean into the descriptiveness of the scenario, it's okay, I'm just casting this and that's my turn. Which Vorthus and Shy are obviously very privy to seeing me do this as like Lydia in our Extinction Curse campaign.
Yeah.
It's okay, here's my 3 actions, goodbye. But at the same time, this game encourages a lot more from the immediate output to just go straight into the role play side that it feels again like you're doing so much, but you're doing so little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to say it's probably like a solid 3
Solid 3? Okay.
out of 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If I let the anime stuff bother me more, I'd also put it down to a 3. But I just forged ahead.
It's funny.
No, I'm joking. Well, excellent.
So adamantly against it.
Hey, but Full Metal Alchemist is a great recommendation, actually.
Well, maybe I'll give it a try someday. After I get through all my
Thank
other
you,
stuff.
Decaf.
Still
Thank
got,
you, Decaf.
I still have Transformers stuff I gotta watch.
Valid.
Shy. How
Hello.
are you feeling about all this? About the system and
I will
everything?
say, I was gonna say I have a lot of very similar sentiments. I will definitely say one of the most similar ones, because Decaf and I talked about it a little bit, like offside, and yeah, like I think one of the big ones I can agree with is the like action economy. It both does and doesn't make sense in the sense of like it's like a lot but a little, because yeah, like they mentioned, it's this one action, but if you are a single person playing these 4 characters on the field at once, yeah, it makes sense that you have, you have one of them who is very much they have one job, and that is to defend the party. That is the whole thing they do.
Right.
And then I have one person whom I'm constantly having dedicate to healing. One person that I'm like, oh yeah, no, you're my damage dealer. You're the another person. Like, you have, I guess, a build, if you will, amongst multiple characters rather than having multiple people control each one.
Yeah, I can exactly see what you're going with that point. They almost went so hard into simulating the JRPG. They almost, not to say like they didn't think about this, but it almost feels like the individual experience was neglected.
Maybe a little, yeah.
Tiny bit.
But
That's I don't mean it to sound as harsh as that does. But
no, and I get what you mean, but in a way, like that is kind of how it ends up becoming, unfortunately.
mm-hmm.
Because yeah, like if you were to do that in an RPG standpoint, you probably would have a character that's going to be like, yes, Rain has no health, so this person's whole purpose is to shield him from going down. Like, I would play it differently as like a single person than I would as 4.
Right, yeah. So I mean, thinking about it, like if this were an actual JRPG, you would be one person controlling each of these 4 characters.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You would each get to do the things they do, instead of
Mm-hmm.
each person only getting to do the one thing they do.
Yeah. So I could almost see, and while this would be insane, but I could also almost see like a person having almost 2 characters, just to like give them a little bit of versatility. But I would also be curious to see higher level play for this kind of game, because like you said, level. You said level 1, but meaning level 5, but like it really is like level 1. Adventures start at 5. Just like in Pathfinder, level 1 is rough. Like, it's rough.
Yeah.
So I would be curious.
Yeah, this does go all the way up to level 50.
Exactly. So I would be curious, like, how would 10 go? How would 15 go? Even just on like the lower end of it.
Yeah.
And of course there's the masochist in me that goes, what is level 50 like? But I think
that'd be rough to just like jump in. Like jump straight to.
You're not wrong, but still.
At the same time though, you're still bound by the effectively one action per turn, so
yeah. I mean, I just wonder if it wouldn't be like, what is it called? Not analysis. Is it analysis paralysis? I don't know. Just trying to like having suddenly all these options that you have at level 50.
Yeah. I know that something
that would
like,
be the big
learning
issue.
the character piece by piece.
Yeah.
But so I would be curious how high level play would feel in comparison to like, or not even just mid-level play, feels. But That's kind of like my main standpoint. I'm like, it's interesting. It does feel like it pulls a little bit too much away unintentionally. And thus my second thought process was the narrative side point. I find it fascinating, but maybe this is just me as a chaos induced individual who loves doing things on the fly. That's just how I exist. This the narrative kind of standpoint between the GM and players all having this all together, having a narrative control over the story. It's almost like you're all writing the same book together, so it creates a different experience than you would you don't come to Fabula Ultima, I don't think, the same way you would go to Pathfinder. I don't think you would try to serve the same purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be very intrigued to see, like, if you had a more narratively minded group, because I admit I'm terrible at it. As much as I love chaos, it fascinates me. I would be curious if you had like a more narrative minded group who's much more oriented towards doing that already, how they would take this and how it would feel and stuff like that.
Yeah. Excellent. Do you have a numerical value you think you could assign this game?
Still find it very intriguing. A couple things that I'm like, could be worked on. Oh, wait, hold on. I was about to say a 4, but the concern of just getting one shot at the start of a combat and not being able to come back.
I mean, that almost happened to you twice.
That's practically what happened, yeah. And even, yeah, so as much as it was self-inflicted with my own, inexistent HP, but like specifically unable to come back is the part that I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
Because again, in a JRPG, one person goes down, I'm like, okay, well, I still have these other 3 that I can work with.
Why?
If you're splitting it among 4 players, you just took out a whole player, and you didn't even give the Phoenix down from Final Fantasy. Like, where's, where's the method to bring them back?
Yeah, you know what? I want to check. I want to check if there is something like that in the broader game, and it's just not something they mentioned in the press start.
Yeah. If I will say, if there isn't, I do think it would lower it to a 3.5 for me. Mostly out of the concern of wanting to keep my players engaged as from like a GM standpoint, or just from a player standpoint, wanting everyone to feel engaged. But if that at least exists, I could give it a 4. I love the versatility of it. I find that fun.
So yeah, I'm scrolling through the weapons here and the shields. I don't know, maybe I need to look at like the inventory points stuff. Because off the bat, I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, it seems like only thing a person could do is spend their inventory points to make a potion and then pour the potion down the dying person's throat. That seemed to be the only solution.
Yeah, so I mean, okay, inventory points on page 104 of the core rulebook. The 3 potions are Elixir to recover mind points, Remedy to recover hit points, and Tonic to recover from a status effect. You can also create Elemental Shards to deal 10 damage of a type of your choice, or a Magic Tent, which allows the entire group to rest in the wilderness. Excuse me. Sorry, my voice was scratching up there a little bit. The Tinker
I was
also
wondering.
gets...
I was like, whoa.
The Tinker also gets some new ways to use it. So I wonder, like, do they get something that's like Phoenix or whatever you called it? And it doesn't look like it.
Like a Phoenix Down. Phoenix Down is what Final Fantasy specifically calls the revive.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty certain that's a Final Fantasy owned thing, but that's just immediately what my brain thought of.
Yeah, so unless the intent is that like the health potion could bring you back, then I think maybe they should reword like the surrender and stuff a little bit better.
Yeah, because the way like surrender sounds is you're just out.
Out of the fight. Like you aren't a consideration of it anymore. That was my read on it as well.
Yeah. Which I can kind of see from a more, because they've got like the very cinematic approach for a lot of the narrative, so I can kind of see it, but at the same, again, it taking out a player from the narrative feels pretty rough to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe that's also a misunderstanding of how it's supposed to go, because maybe it's the fact that everyone has so much narrative control that player can then contribute in other ways without actually being like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like one thing about it, like when you go down to like 0 hit point, your character did not die unless you, the player, say that you die.
Yeah, it's with the sacrifice. Yeah, like otherwise the GM's not allowed to like kill you off, kind of deal.
I have mixed
Which
feelings
is-
about that as a GM. But
that was also interesting to see, but I'm like, from a player standpoint, maybe it doesn't bother me as a player.
For this game, I can accept that. So you said that brings it down to 3.5 for you?
If there's no way to let
Not that I'm
to inherently
seeing.
allow a player to continue to contribute more directly,
Does your class have something that would let
so I'm
you...
trying to open up my. I need to find on the new computer. I don't think I've opened up the rules yet, so I have to get it back
so
up.
So your whole like healing thing comes from you being a spiritist, right?
I believe so. Let me hold on.
Aura, awaken, the increase an ability score.
Classes. Yeah, I'm a spiritist, so that's where a lot of my healing comes from.
Yeah, there's mercy that prevents a creature from going down the first time.
Fascinating.
But I'm not seeing anything that's like bring a creature back from surrender.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
So yeah.
I'm also looking in the Fabula Ultima Discord, and I'm not really seeing much either. Doing a quick search for revive.
Yeah.
That's almost interesting to me that it hasn't been brought up by others, because I feel like that would be a pretty interesting contention point.
Yeah.
I think the idea is one would use their inventory points to drink the health elixir before, like when they're at 10.
Man, I would have loved to.
But yeah,
believe you me, that was the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that
it didn't matter.
The fact that each of the bosses got 2 turns to just pummel you down.
Wail on. Yeah. Although I will say that does remind me, the healing spell, while it is delightful, is far too potent for no reason.
I mean, is it though?
Dude,
if you're gonna die,
40 HP? I didn't even have 40.
I mean, that might be another issue on your end.
Yeah, but also think about like how much damage that you're typically doing. Like with spells, a lot of spells are like high roll plus 15 damage.
I just need another heal that's called mini heal, so that I can use 5 per target at 20 HP.
For my bosses, my regular like melee attacks were high roll plus 10, and my either area or ranged attacks
minimum 11
were high roll plus 5.
Yeah.
So I mean they're decently beefy.
That's fair. I'll give you that.
I will say Desdemona did have a spell that was high roll plus 15.
Yeah, with a lot of spells are.
I think my main reason is just because I'm like, the part that it's like Rain would be fine off of like one to one hit, but let's say he gets hit with a small one, and it's like, okay, well, I don't want to spend so much MP and waste so much healing to recover like 10 health, and then find out that for whatever reason that still was enough of a threshold for them to high roll knock you down. It's like, oof.
Yeah.
But
I will say
that's a small opinion that doesn't change my score.
So we're settling on 3.5 for you. One tiny little nitpick I had and this is a very minor thing. I wish there was a little bit more variation in the attributes. They just say choose one of the following 3 profiles, where you could be a jack of all trades with all D8s. You could be average with a D10, 2 D8s, and a D6, or you could be specialized with 2 D10s and 2 D6s spread among your traits. I don't know. I guess it's hard. I kind of wish that D4 was included as a minimum die for your attributes. And if
I
not, it's
mean-
just like a base 1, then as 1 that your ability scores could be lowered to. Because as it is right now, there is no reason to like hit an enemy with a status effect that lowers something that's a D6, because it can't go lower than a D6.
I can see that, but I think half their system is reliant on the idea that the player, or anyone for that matter, always has a chance to critically succeed
Maybe, yeah.
at all times, and that requires a minimum of a 6 on the die. If you get dropped to a D4,
I'd say,
it would take that away.
yeah. But I
It
mean, I
definitely made.
think that's a good reason
Oh,
to have
I
it
was
be
saying it made my.
something that have it be something that like status effects can take you down to. I think it's completely
Mhm.
within reason having a status effect make it so that you're like potentially unable to crit with something that was already your worst save or worst attribute.
Mhm.
But
Eh,
that's just mine. And again, this is me liking a little bit more crunch. And I as
Sure.
players well know, I love challenging you guys. And so
Yeah, I love murdering us left and no.
only killed
Well, what's the
Or me.
alliteration for Monster Mash? Massacring my mates.
making monsters
Something
to
along that
massacre
line?
my mates. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
It always goes the other way around though.
Ah, so what you're saying is I need to play High Noon more because you're too cute to kill.
I'll kill High Noon. Don't
You
you
are.
doubt
You
it.
I
are
was gonna say,
you
don't.
intentionally try to kill High Noon. You are a monster.
I'm fine with that.
It's BB. Come on now.
I've been called worse
Dang.
things.
He will kill. He doesn't care if you're playing an awakened animal kitten. He will. No mercy.
With a zombie.
Yep.
I just realized, like, I would love to try playing like High Noon in the cause every JRPG needs its mascot character.
Yeah, you could absolutely bring him in. And I don't know, I'm not sure if that's like an issue. So like, if you brought in a High Noon, there wouldn't be like, you could very easily just have like, I'm this cactus guy with a gun. But like,
Yeah.
nothing about being a cactus guy, I guess, really stands out. Aside from like, unless you can like work it into your identity.
Well, one of the adjectives part of your identity is non-human. That's what I did for Claire being a half-dragon.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
How do we feel about like the whole identities and themes and everything?
I'm mixed on it, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the fact that races or ancestors or whatever you want to call them aren't really a thing, from a mechanical point of view, it feels like there's an element of customization that's taken away, and just relying more on the identity themes, etc. would definitely play more into the narrative part of it, but that's also like the least crunchy part of the system.
Yeah.
Not to like immediately like downshoot it, but I have to admit I think I disagree with that.
Oh?
I feel like it adds like it may not feel like the customization is there, which can still be fair, but like I think in a way it almost adds more because again, like because of how the game is so narratively focused, since the world is built between the players and the GM, the races being there, sure, it may not have like mechanical benefits to you being a half dragon or you being a goblin or you being a sheep. I don't know. But like my brain goes to I played Ayuden Chronicle very recently, which was like a spiritual successor to like Suikoden for those who maybe know that one. And yeah, there's like multiple different characters. You have like dragon people and humans, and my brain is blanking on everything else at the moment. But like there is other
Dragon
things,
peoples
but
and
there's
humans. That's
no
it.
everything. That's all there is. For all I
Dragon
know, there
peoples
is,
and
but
humans.
it's a minute of a second. But like there's no. They don't change mechanically because of like their race or anything. That's just what they look like. Now, maybe narratively, them being a dragon folk will affect how people see them, which can
Obviously,
absolutely
I'm
be a
not saying that
thing.
there's no narrative aspect to it. I'm just saying, like, from a raw mechanic
Yeah, I think
perspective.
he's saying he wished they were a little bit tied in mechanically, like being a different race, right?
Oh,
Am I a little bit?
yeah, and a little bit, yeah, and I do think that some of it does come up from like what's the word I'm looking for, like an emergent mechanic sort of thing. Like, for example, when the ship got shot down, I was able to use my wings to
Uh-huh.
kind of like take to the flight and kind of just slowly glide down using a dexterity plus might check. You know, that's a bit of an emergent thing, but it would be kind of nice to have that more mechanic
Codified.
side. Yeah, more codified.
Yeah.
But that's
Okay.
just my opinion.
And
I
that's
like systems that are a lot more crunchy and codified with rules.
yeah. I think
But that's
Yeah.
that's
ultimately
Horthus and I being very mechanically minded in that particular
I
instance.
I do think that's still very fair. Again, I think that kind of comes from the like this system. You don't come to this from what I can see. Like you wouldn't come to this for the same goal and end goal.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed.
I
Agreed.
I
I
think I
think.
would still go to Pathfinder a lot of the time.
yeah.
Well, and I was gonna say, I think a lot of this is kind of like my meeting the middle ground here on both sides. I think the problem lies in the actual press start itself, not having a lot of detail for the world building aspect. That is a huge portion of this game,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
the opening chapters talk about, hey, GM and players, you are all building this world. You all get to like determine what ancestries exist, what sort of like environment you guys live in, what sort of maybe class limitations might want to be played with. You know, you guys are supposed to determine these things, and unfortunately, the press start doesn't really talk about it. I mean, to introduce like even let's say Olivia, right? Immediately downplays a character like Claire as also sort of non-human because she's got barriers. Where's that coming from? Right? Like it's a small call out, but it's genuinely a little bit of a maybe they should have provided us a little bit more information, or maybe we could have sat down and expedited a lot of that information ourselves ahead of time to really get into what the press start was trying to give us to really play with this. Overall, that's kind of my
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
on
I
that
think.
because I think it's just lacking there.
Yeah. I think that's something you could definitely delve in more on your own. But yeah. No, I think I am overall. I do think this is a fun game. I think it's a neat system. But like I said, it's not entirely my cup of tea. Not the least of which the anime influences. But adding up the scores that we have given it, and I'm factoring in the 3.5 score from Shy since we didn't find anything to help somebody recover from being surrendered. We have given it an aggregate view of 3.6 out of 5. So that is an entirely favorable number. This is something, if you guys want to check out on your own, wholly encourage you to do so. Fun little game. You can find Press Start for free, or you can get the core rulebook yourself. There's a Fabula Ultima site. You can also find it, I believe, on Mephidius and Drive-Thru RPG. I'm not sure about physical copies. I have all mine on PDFs. But I think we are about to wrap it up here. Do any of you have any closing thoughts on the system, this game, anything that has happened here tonight or any of the previous times that we have played?
Um, just wanted to add, and we could bring it on home and close it. I think I'm also really grateful for this system because it was interesting how the concept of a modifier was based off of your dice size and the power of your dice size versus being like, oh, if you set up your skills and feats just right, now you have a +6. And you have to like know the game to know that, oh, you have to have these feats to like set up your modifiers right, or else you're gonna have a weak character. Which is usually like a source of my anxiety with character building. This idea of if I didn't pick the right skills or the right feats or the right ancestry or the right thing, that I messed up my ability to have a decent modifier to like protect my character from different items. And so I don't know. I'm just bringing that up of like, I was at least happy to play a system that it didn't feel as much of experience like allowed you to level up or not level up in this space, because everybody either had like a D8 or a D6 or a D10. Like it kind of made it, I don't know, a more even playing field. And so I am grateful for this opportunity to have been able to play it and try it out from that way, instead of having the panic of did I strategize hard enough to have a good character or not? But I know some people get into the game for that specific purpose.
Yeah.
So,
I think there is still a bit of that there as well, though, because as we saw with Rain going down in like 1 or 2 hits every time he got hit, you can make very
I'm
fragile
feeling specifically
characters.
tarded. How dare you? No.
yeah, right. I know. It's like
Rude. No.
poor Rain, poor Rain and his low HP. My
Yeah,
goodness.
I mean,
it's possible to make some
I've
very fragile characters.
yeah. I mean, I'm realizing that that's apparently one of my gishes that I do is definitely inexistent HP and AC, and yes, I'm gonna somehow end up on the front line.
Yeah, I will say your psychic pulls it off better than Rain did.
Oh, my psychic does it way better than Rain ever could probably dream. Nothing against him, but if a psychic who has no HP or AC is on the front line and as of today is now holding the highest crit damage between the group, is that what it was? The crit record?
Highest, yep, I think that is the crit record I've seen from player characters. 128.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
Level
if
10.
Arena died, I'm bringing in Claire, and we're getting out the big guns, and we're gonna be getting
Doing
Bring it. I will use imaginary weapon all day long.
No, and like, it is nothing, it is not a diminution of the system to say that Fabula Ultima is simpler than Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
Oh,
and if
no.
that is a game you want to play, then more power to you. That is, there should be a variety in games. There should be a range of complexity for games. And I think this falls a little bit more in the middle ground than anything else. I wouldn't call it a super simple game by any means, but it is certainly less complex than other RPGs that I have played.
I can just say one thing. The fact that the game is not a D20 based system is, I think, a point in favor of it, just because we had so many D20 systems out there.
It's refreshing, if nothing else.
Exactly. If all you played is D&D, not even
Yeah.
all you played is 5e, and you're so used to the D20, try a game that doesn't use the D20 as the base die roll.
Yep.
You might enjoy it more. Who knows?
Even just a couple different games that I know, there's like, it's like a fully D6 or fully D8. And I think that's also like, where it's like it uses just one die and then a whole bunch of them.
Or there's
I like that it still uses. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say there's also like lots of like percentile systems out there, like Call of Cthulhu.
Yep.
Wow.
I like that it's still using multiple different dice. So like that there is the D6, D10, D12. I don't know when, but it still has the opportunity to use the D20. I'm not really sure when, but I did see that it doesn't nix the D20 from existence. That it still exists.
I mean, you used D20 when you were rolling on the table for character creation.
Well, I mean, I don't count that. That's something else. But I did enjoy that it wasn't based solely on like a set of dice or like the same dice or like primarily a D20. It was nice to see other dice get their moment to shine, I guess, a little more.
Yeah, agreed.
Kind of off of what you said too, BB. I mean, obviously you said we gave it a score of 3.6, but I feel like it goes without saying, don't take our score for full credit. Like, if you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. If you don't, don't. It definitely is a system that I think deserves to be tried, bare minimum. But
Yeah, and like we
Yeah, I was
said,
gonna
this.
say, I feel like I have probably been the most critical sounding, but this is a genuinely fun system. I think that it's more of it suits your table, right? I can definitely think of some players in my own games outside of here that would probably immediately love the system, and this would become a staple.
Mhm.
But for me as a player, I would say, you know what? I'll play it, and I'll be happy to jump into it anytime. But I have other systems I prefer. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that is a fair assessment. And like we said, please go out, check out at least a press start, and draw your own conclusions. We are by no means the council of RPGs. We are no means the be all and end all of it.
now
So,
we are the expert.
the undisputed expert. We are your
Don't
4 out of
question it.
5.
No.
Yep,
We are the end all be all.
we are your 4 out of 5 dentists recommending you this toothpaste. But no, I think with that, we are going to end it here. And so while this path has come to its end, there remain more to travel. So join us again 2 weeks from now, everything else permitting, and we will start down a new trail in the new RPG. Until then, stay safe, be good, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Ciao.